Hello, welcome to Southbank Theatre and the Open House Melbourne 2020 tour. When you looked on the site, you may have seen that we've got some other resources about Southbank Theatre, including a virtual tour. So I encourage you, when you've got the opportunity, to have a look at that, because that'll show you a whole lot more about what goes on in this theatre and take you to some places that we're not going to be able to get to today. My name's Mark Wheeler. I'm the Theatre Operations Director at Southbank Theatre. My job is to make sure that the building is ready to welcome audiences to the theatre when you come and see a play, and that all of the staff here know what they need to do in order to have the show operate as smoothly as possible. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of Southbank Theatre, showing you some of the spaces that the public do normally get to see, but also some back of house areas that the public don't normally visit. You'll be able to see how we put the shows on our stage and all the work that goes into setting up a performance in the theatre. When you arrive in the theatre, you will normally come into this foyer. If you've got a ticket already, you're okay, but if you don't, you might come to the box office and actually buy a ticket from the staff there. Sometimes people arrive a bit earlier and we've got a restaurant off our foyer and you can actually dine in there before you actually go to the performance as well. So we're now in the level 1 foyer of the theatre. This is another area that the audience wait before they go into the auditorium, or they might relax here at interval and have a drink. This is a much bigger space, so there's lots of space to relax here. It's also got a great aspect over the city. There's windows here that look out over the city skyline, and you get to see that really well, and it's especially lovely at night when all the buildings are lit up. You'll also notice in this foyer the design of the geometric shapes on the walls and on the ceiling. That's also mirrored by the design of the outside of the building. That's based on the work of an American abstract expressionist painter called Al Held, and he was predominantly active in the second half of the 20th century. Now we're going to go inside to the Sumner Auditorium. So we're now inside the Sumner Theatre. This is the principal performance home of Melbourne Theatre Company, who's been resident at Southbank Theatre since it opened in 2009. This auditorium seats 559 people. It was designed to be very neutral in how it looked. So unlike some older theatres that you might be familiar with, where there's lots of gilt and red velvet in the decoration, this theatre is very simple, so that when the show is on, you're not distracted by what's in the auditorium around you. One feature, though, that you can see in the background is that we've got a word wall here. So it's LED backlit lights, and it came about because when the building was being designed, the acoustic engineers said we needed to put lots of small holes in the walls in order to soften the sound so it wouldn't bounce around quite as much. And our artistic director at the time suggested that if we set those holes in the walls as words, we could spell out quotes from plays, which is what we've done. So there's 38,000 small holes in the walls, and you can see some of the words in the background. They're all quotes from plays. And when a show comes in, the director can change the colour of those, and you can see that they're actually scrolling at the moment, but it can be on a set colour. They can change the colour of those to suit the mood of the play. So that's one of the decoration features of this room. But of course, when the house lights go down and the show starts, the word wall goes out as well, so you're in a very dark room with no distraction and you can concentrate on what's happening on stage. The other thing in here is we've got 559 seats, front 3 rows down the bottom that you can see. Those can actually come out, and the floor that they're on can come up to the stage level, so that makes a deeper stage if the design of the show or the set needs that extra room. Or it can actually drop down about 2.5 metres below the auditorium and we can have an orchestra pit. Most of the time, though, it does sit where it is now with the seats on it, and we have a slightly higher capacity in the room. So the design of this room is that there's slightly curved walls that go around the sides, and that was in order that the sound coming off the stage and the actors' voices would spread around the room and be directed all the way to the back rows. So when you're in this space, you get a really good sound from the stage. You're able to hear everything that's going on really well. The other thing that you might notice is on the back wall, you might be able to see a couple of windows up there. That's where some of the technicians operate the show when it's on. The windows in the centre that you can see is where the lighting control operator sits, and they operate all the lights for the show. That's got windows on it so that it's a soundproof room, and they're able to talk to the other crew on the show or the stage manager during the course of the performance without disturbing the audience. You can see in front of that a small desk. That's where the audio operator sits, if there's any audio elements to the show, or if the actors might be using microphones. The reason that's in the auditorium is that the audio operator needs to hear the sound in the same way the audience does, so that they can mix the sound in the best possible way. There's one more space in the back wall on the left, which is a room that sometimes the director or other production staff might sit in during the performance, and that's soundproofed as well. And that's so that they might be able to see how the show's going over a long run, or they might be able to take notes or talk to each other, and once again, they're in a room that they won't be disturbing the audience while they're speaking. So we're now on the Sumner Stage. This is the view that the actors see when they're performing in a show, obviously with an audience in the seats, but that's what they look out on in the auditorium. When the Southbank Theatre was designed, Melbourne Theatre Company wanted this stage to have as much capacity to put shows into it as possible. That includes shows that we might stage ourselves, but sometimes we share productions with interstate companies. So we needed a stage that would potentially match the scale and the facilities of other theatres around the country. So this is a very big stage space. It's 19 metres deep from front to back, it's 27 metres wide, and it's 20 metres high. So there's a lot of capacity to do things on the stage. The stage itself is made up really of 6 areas. There's the centre section that we're currently in at the moment. That's where the action of the stage usually takes place. Then there are 2 sections on the side called wings. These aren't usually seen by the audience because they'll be hidden by cloths or by bits of the set. But sometimes this is where the actors wait to come on for the next scene. You might store some props here that have to be picked up. Sometimes if an actor is coming off and has a very quick costume change and doesn't have time to go back to their dressing room, they might actually do that costume change in a small room on the side of the stage. The other thing that happens in the wings is that that's where the stage manager sits, and the stage manager is responsible for the management of the whole show, how it runs. They interact with the other crew on the show through headsets, and the stage manager is based in this corner. So you can see this is the desk that they use. It's not operating at the moment because we don't have a show on, but you see some of the infrastructure here. There's lots of monitors there as well, because quite often we'll have cameras in different sections of the stage, because if they're sitting here, they can't see all of what's going on. So there'll be cameras and they'll play on those monitors so they can see what else is happening, and they can make sure that when they're calling the next scene, everything is ready to proceed. There's also wings on the other side. The other sections in the stage that make up the stage are, there's a rear stage area. Now, sometimes a set will go all the way to the back wall, but at 19 metres, that's a very big set. So quite often that will be hidden from the view of the audience, and we might store some additional furniture up there or different set elements that might be used at another point in the show. Sometimes if the actors have got to come off one side and come on the other side, they'll cross over up there behind the set so they can't get seen. One of the other areas that's involved in the stage is the flies, and the fly tower is above us. This theatre has 60 fly lines in it, and they're all operated by motors and computer controlled. So one person is able to operate all of those at the same time. There's 60 lines up there. They can each hold 500 kilos. So we can actually hang scenery up there that could weigh as much as 30,000 kilos. Very unlikely, but it's got that capacity. Quite often lights will be hung up there as well so that they can shine down on the stage. The last area that makes up the stage is actually the basement, which is under the stage. Now, our theatre is designed with the stage, all of the stage floor is made up of individual traps, and they can be taken out so that we can actually access the basement underneath the stage. We don't have to cut into the stage and then repair it. So all of this stage is individual traps. You can take them out. We've used that in the past for things like putting in a staircase for the actors to go down or come up. Putting in, if we've got a revolve on the stage, there might be a motor and that actually has to sit below the stage level, so that can go into one of those traps. Sometimes in a show you might want an actor to appear or disappear very quickly, and you can put in a hole there and they can drop away. The other thing we've done in this theatre is we had a play that involved a swimming pool. So we had a small swimming pool on stage, and that was able to be done by actually taking out some traps and building that pool into that space. So they're the areas that actually make up the stage, and we use all of those in how we actually put on the show that we present to the audience. So we've shown you some areas so far that the public, when they come and see a performance, would normally see as well. But now we're going to go further backstage into areas that usually aren't seen by the public, and we'll show you a bit more of how the building operates. If you want to come this way. So we're now 5 levels above the stage and we're in the Winch Room, and this is what operates the fly system. So you can see all these motors in the background. They're not currently operating because we don't have a show on the stage, but normally if the show was in place, these would all be fired up, and this room is very noisy, so it's completely soundproofed from the stage so that it doesn't disturb the performance. You can see all the motors here. The fly lines on our stage are 20 centimetres apart, but these motors are bigger than that. So the way this is set up is that half the motors that operate the fly line are on this side of the stage, and you can see these are all the even numbered fly lines, and the other half are on the other side of the stage, and they're all the odd numbers because we wouldn't fit them all in the one space. But the one computer control operates all of those lines, and they can all operate in sequence when they're changing the set. We're now going to go to a place that not very many people go, including most of the staff here. So if you'd like to follow me. So we're on the roof of the fly tower of the Sumner Theatre. It's an amazing space up here to be able to see the city, but as I said, hardly anybody gets the chance to do that. This is about 27 metres off the ground, so we're about the height of a 9-storey building. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the buildings around us, some of which you may recognise, but we get a really good 360 view of the city here. You can see just down here there's a brown building. That's actually the rust-coloured metal side of the Australian Centre for the Contemporary Art, which is down there. Just behind it you can just see the top of the Malthouse Theatre. You can see here, this is the top of the new Ian Potter Southbank Centre, which is the home of the Melbourne Conservatorium of Music. And that only opened last year, and it was designed by John Wardle Architects. A little bit further, you'll be able to see over here Australia 108. So that's the new residential building that is almost complete. You can see they've reached the top of it, but there's still cranes there finishing the work. So that's an amazing shot of that because you can see most of that building from here. A little bit further around, you can see Eureka Tower. And if we keep coming, you'll see all of the city skyline there. And in front of it, you can see the spire of the Art Centre just in front of us here, but all of that background of the city. So this would be great. I've never been up here at night, but it'd be a great view at night, obviously. Just down here, you can see the grey building here. That's the National Gallery Victoria International Building, and that's the building that was designed by Roy Grounds and opened in 1968. And then lastly, if we go the rest of the way, you can see the beginning of the Botanic Gardens over here, and you'll be able to make out the light towers over the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG over there. So that's a big view of the city, and we're right in the middle of that space. So we're back on the ground floor, and we're in the corridor behind the Sumner Stage. So this corridor is mainly the dressing rooms for all the actors who are in plays on the Sumner. We've also got a wardrobe in here though, so they don't manufacture costumes in there, but they do maintain costumes, they clean them, sometimes they have to clean wigs, sometimes if there's very special makeup for a show, that it'll be done in there by a makeup artist rather than in the dressing room. So we'll go along here. There's 6 dressing rooms that we have for the Sumner. They have a capacity of about 20 actors. It's not often that we have that many in a play, but we have had that number and used all of the rooms. You'll notice as we go along that there's actually no numbers on either of the dressing rooms. They're all just coloured doors. And that was decided when we designed the building, that rather than having numbers on the doors, that would get rid of the hierarchy of somebody going, oh, I'm in the number 1 dressing room. So we decided that all the doors would just have colours, and that's how they are identified, but none of them are actually numbered. And there's a dressing room in here that I'll show you. So we have different sized dressing rooms. This is one of the smaller ones, but this can have 2 to 3 people in it. All the dressing rooms have their own bathrooms. They also have, they all have their own couches, so that sometimes if the actors are doing 2 shows in a day, they might not be able to leave the theatre because they may have special makeup on and it's too complicated to get out of that and go and then come back. So they'll stay in here, they'll have dinner here, but they might have a rest. So there's couches in each of the room that can fold out, like a fold-out bed, and they can relax on there. So it's a good setup, and it was designed so that the dressing rooms in this corridor are immediately behind the stage, so that there's not a lot of distance for the actors to go to get on stage. And it's easy if they are coming back and they don't have to do a quick change on the stage, they can get back to their dressing room quite easily. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take you into the dock of the theatre, And so follow me. As we go, actually, I'll show you, you can see now that there's the stage that we were on earlier, and we've gone upstairs and come all the way around the back, and then we're back in this corner. So that's the stage in the auditorium for the Sumner. And then if you come this way, this is the dock. And this is where, when shows arrive, they'll come on trucks and they'll park out the back and they'll be loaded in through the dock and come into this area. A bit like wardrobe, we can do maintenance in this space. So you can see there's some equipment over here if any of the set gets damaged or needs to be repaired, but we don't actually build our sets here because it's not a big enough space. So you can see the dock here, that's where the sets get loaded in. They come into this space. If you look around here, you can see how they go into the Sumner Stage, through these big doors, and there's 2 doors there, and they can close, and that seals the stage off and makes sure that no sound gets through. But that's how the sets get loaded in. The other thing that's in this space is all of our technical crew have offices here. So the people who operate the lights and the flies and operate on the stage, they have their offices here. Once again, like the dressing rooms, they're quite close to the stage. So if they're in their office and they suddenly get called to the stage for something, they can get there very quickly. And now we're going to go through into our second space, which is called the Lawler. So if you follow me through this way. And this is the Lawler. See, this is a very different space to the Sumner that we were in before. This is 163 seats, but you can see, looking around, that the stage is very simple in how it's set up. It doesn't have the facilities and all the equipment that the Sumner has. The feature of this room is that all of this seating is modular, so it can move around. We can pull it apart and put it in different configurations. And sometimes a show will come in and the director or the designer might want that different look in terms of where the audience is seated and how the action of the play happens around the seating. So we can pull these seats apart and put it in different shapes around the room. It generally lives here because this is how we get the most seats in and the largest stage space for the actors to play on. So that's the end of our tour of Southbank Theatre as part of Open House Melbourne. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it and you've learned a little bit about how we operate behind the scenes at the theatre. And we hope we might see you here one day to attend a performance. Enjoy the rest of Open House Melbourne weekend. Thank you.